Hello, and welcome to today's WaterNEXT Waterside Chats, the first of the year. Today's session is going to be on the water investor landscape. My name is Benita Matthew, and I'm the program manager for WaterNEXT with Foresight Canada. So great to be here and great to see you all today. A quick overview of today's agenda structure. We'll be kicking off with some welcome remarks, a little bit about Foresight and WaterNEXT before we get into our speakers today. And then hopefully we'll have a little bit of an open discussion with a couple of Q&A sessions, as well as the opportunity to either ask questions by raising your hands or feel free to use the chat function. And then just close it off, hopefully within the hour. It is with gratitude and respect that we acknowledge that the lands on which Foresight operates are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I myself acknowledge that I live and work on the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe people here in Ottawa. A little bit about Foresight. Foresight is Canada's cleantech ecosystem accelerator, and since its inception, we have supported over 1,200 ventures and collaborated with over 2,000 stakeholders, rights holders, and partners, both on a domestic and international front. Our audacious goal is that Canada be the first G7 country to reach net zero by accelerating cleantech innovation and driving the adoption of climate solutions. We collaborate with all sides of the clean tech ecosystem and support our goal through venture acceleration, adoption acceleration, ecosystem building, and knowledge sharing. And WaterNext is an initiative of Foresight. We are Canada's water technology network, and we, together with stakeholders from the water space, help to accelerate the development and adoption of clean water technologies. We, of course, envision Canada as the best place in the world to develop and commercialize innovative water technologies to serve the world's most pressing water challenges. Our WaterNext initiative focuses on rallying ecosystems around the development and adoption of clean tech solutions needed to get to net zero as quickly as possible. And in this case, we're hoping to help Canada achieve less than 10% municipal and industrial water loss by 2033. As we like to say here, water is not a technology issue, but technology is a critical part of the solution, which is why we're really excited to have these kinds of conversations and get our ventures, part of those discussions. I would also like to just give a moment to our WaterNext partner, Xylem, who supports our WaterNext cohort programming that helps innovators deepen their network connections in the water sector. Now I am excited to introduce you all to the speaker for today's session, John Robinson from Mazarine Ventures. John operates at the intersection of technology, venture investing, and water and wastewater. And with 15 years in the water and wastewater industry, he has experience in most end user markets and has worked across nearly every technology vertical with a particularly strong focus on data science related innovations. The investment group that he co-founded, Mazarine Ventures, operates an in-house incubator known as Mazarine Labs and two seed stage funds, as well as a growth stage fund that's all focused on technology innovations that address water, wastewater risks in agriculture, aquaculture, the built environment, financial services, industry, and utilities. So welcome, John, to today's session. Perhaps you can kick it off by introducing yourself and tell us a little bit more about your background and a bit more about Mazarine Ventures before I hand it over to our strategic advisor and moderator for today's session, Evan Furlong. Over to you, John.
Thanks for inviting me to this. We're impact investors, and part of our annual goal is to catalyze sharing and learning opportunities for our network. So to whatever degree we have knowledge or wisdom or insights, we share it, and we hope that other people can build on those insights and experience to do their own, pursue their own activities related to water.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. And I know everybody here is, at some level into their own progress with their companies. Most people have an entrepreneurial mindset associated with this call. So feel free, anyone who's on this call, to sort of raise your hand, as Benita said, and we can address your questions. But in the meantime, I'll take the first post here and ask, what are you finding most motivating about the water sector at the moment? Is there a certain realm of technology that you find most motivating, like You mentioned AI applications. Are you finding that, after your world travels, that there are some more
Mm.
compelling areas of focus for you than others?
So I think from a very high level, to answer your question directly, and then to make a little correction on your question, at the highest level, we're probably all familiar with the expression, you can't manage what you don't measure, or you can't improve what you don't measure, or some iteration of that. Measurement is everything in school, in life, in careers. You just constantly be measured. Water and wastewater is the same. If we want to solve some of these headaches that humanity has, we've got to get more data on quantity, too much, too little, and quality. We've got more than we ever had. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we didn't have a lot of data on water, but now it's getting better. In the 20th century, sensors and cloud computing help do it. But the royal we still know very little about the water in our taps in our homes, about sea level rise, about rain, and so on and so forth. We're most bullish on solving that exact problem. So we look at companies and we use the term, they might not use this term in the marketing collaterals, but data producing companies, sensors, including satellites, Earth observation is producing data that somebody can look at and make a decision around. Lab services, handheld tools, sensors you stick around the place, produce more data with high temporal resolution and spatial resolution. This part of this place is it's slightly different water than that place. So you want that higher spatial resolution. And then temporally, you want that not once a year, but like once a week. If we can get better at that, it doesn't totally solve water problems, but enables us to train algorithms and develop some improved modeling tools to inform predictions and categories of risk and probability and what's going to happen. I mean, algorithmic approach to things. So it really comes all down to like producing more data on quantity of water and quality of water. That's my first thing. So we're most bullish on that. We're very excited about deals in that space. It doesn't mean that we're not interested in treatment or filtration. Like I said, we invested in Swirltex. There's a treatment company. But in order for that technology to work, they need the data on what's coming into the water coming in and then the water going out in order to know the performance of the technology. So we've balanced our portfolio between what we call data science tools. Some in the industry call it digital water, but we just call it the data science toolbox, and treatment, which includes chemistry, electrochemistry, material science, biology, remediating the actual problem. The thing I wanted to correct you on, and maybe this would be helpful for the audience. You say the water sector. That's less helpful as a term because the water sector, it's like the auto sector and the aviation sector and the financial services sector, and that's the water sector. But you've got so many water sectors. You go down that one aisle in the supermarket with Evian and Perrier. That's the water industry. And you're, oh, it's not the water. It is. You're buying water from a company that bottled somewhere and you're drinking it. That is the water industry. But then you've got the utility that's selling you water in your town. They're also selling you water. That is also the water industry. You've got sprinkler heads in commercial property. What's inside those sprinkler pipes? Water to put out fires in property. Is that the water industry? It's water. I don't know. We've got a filtration system under our sink at home to remove any contaminants that are in the water. I wouldn't say that's the water industry. I would say that's health tech. Floods that destroy properties. Is that the water industry? So my first advice to everybody who's an outsider looking into it, I know people like to put things in nice little clean buckets. The term the water industry is so unhelpful in shaping a strategy and a taxonomy that we always encourage newcomers or outsiders to come in and say, technologies that address water-related problems. In the opening remarks, I talked about our interest in aquaculture, fish farming, land-based fish farming, ocean-based. The whole business is water, and more. It's all water quality, which means these sensors. It's the same set of tools, a similar set of tools used in utilities. You talk to guys in pulp and paper. Guess what the most important thing is in making pulp and paper? Water. Food and beverage, water. Apparel, power gen. You talk to anybody who works in a coal-fired power plant or nuclear power plant. I don't like coal. I don't like nuclear, but the whole business is cooling. Is that the water industry? So my point here is like people would be wise to sort of frame water not as the water industry, but as water related, the management of water and the use of water related problems, and then solutions for them, whether it's policy or technology or something else. So that's my bone to pick with the broader Main Street audience. There's the water industry. They put us in the water industry, but ironically, most of the problems that we're looking at are outside of utilities, industry, agriculture. What's the most important thing for farmers? Is that the water industry? Probably should be the water industry because it's 70% of global water use is agriculture. Hello, that's the water industry. But people say, no, that's agriculture. So as investors, we have to frame the world and see the world in a certain way. The second thing that I would offer is that clean water. I don't know if industry practitioners would ever say clean water. I know it's like clean energy and clean tech. Like utilities would call it compliant water because they're regulated and they're selling you compliant water. Is it clean? Like define clean. Like, well, the river behind my house, I would never say clean water because it's a river. There's like microbiology and there's things living in there, fish pooing in there. I mean, I would say, is this water safe? Safe water, compliant water. No industry practitioner in water would ever say clean water or clean water technologies, which is weird because what about wastewater? Dirty water. It's not clean water. It's like nasty water coming through swirl tags. That's not really clean water. That's a wastewater technology. Because it was making it clean. No, it's removing contaminants so that you can do something else with it. And it's not clean. So those are just like maybe tiny little they're more sort of suggestions to this audience. If you're trying to get your head around water, those two things might bring clarity. And so that's sort of but getting back to your question, the data science side. I mean, some examples. Buoys out in the harbor, the marine, and the Gulf of the Ocean. Water tech. You might call that like ocean tech or whatever, but like that's water it's sitting in and it's picking up presence of different temperature and pH, these things. Another area we like is appliance monitoring. Your dishwasher and washing machine at home. Water tech. The whole business of dishwashing, it's all water. Those things break over time. And if you've ever had a leaky flood in a kitchen or dishwasher, the coupling comes apart, you get the whole kitchen floors, or a hot water heater, sometimes those things break. You can monitor those assets, those appliances for normal, abnormal behavior using sensors that produce data that tell you everything's operating normally with this thing. So avoid the flood because you can see, oh, it's operating a little differently. Something's off. Alert, go fix it. So those are just a couple of opportunities that are soil moisture sensing in agriculture. Do I need to irrigate today? The soil is like super wet. Like you don't have to do anything. Save yourself energy, save yourself water. So it all begins with generating more data on the use and the management of, and that's where investors, whether the financial or impact, will make money or generate impact in the next decade by focusing on data producing companies.
You know what? I'm really glad that this is being recorded because you're definitely preaching to the converted here. I mean, the audience that is involved has a undoubted interest in water related technologies and their application. And you know what? You're touching on an issue that is sort of near and dear to my own heart, and I'm certain others on this call as well, that, you know, you're sort of saying it's tricky because you're parsing words and we're kind of picking on different perspectives on the industry. And you know what? I just ran here to this meeting after working for a horticulture and agriculture technology validation facility. And, you know, the horticulture and agriculture, as you say, I mean, the biggest issue is the allocation of water resources in, you know, the most cost efficient manner and the most, you know, conservative manner, and managed with a regional interest in mind. So, you know, water and water resources touch almost, I mean, literally every aspect of our lives. So it's
All the SDGs. But you know what's interesting? I didn't know this when I got into water 15 years ago. Human beings have this like scarcity issue. It's a reptilian brain. They're like running out of time, running out of money, running out of food, running out of water. It's understandable because running out of water would obviously be a problem for business, life. The biggest killer globally is not too little water. It's impaired water, compromised water. If anybody on this call wants to work on one thing that can help humanity,
no.
It's not water resource. I mean, you can say water resource management is quality, but really it's like quality issues are often not lumped into water resource management. I mean, eventually you'll get to a quality problem if you're selling someone water or water availability, but quality is the number one killer. 7,000 people a day die from microbial contamination of the water. And the ironic thing about it is we already know how to filter water. Done. We already solved that. We already solved that. Those people died unnecessarily. The problem is that the technology is not getting to those people. Channels are broken, and the incentives are not there to like make that last mile. The second biggest killer is too much water. About 100, yeah, people are like, It's funny because everyone's like, conserve water, which of course, like I'm big on conservation. Of course, we should use only what we need. But taking shorter showers, low flush faucets, of course, those are important. But if you take a step back and look at water, the antagonist, the anti-hero, water kills. Water is death for people. Look at this, 8,000 people died in Libya last October. That's not water's life. This water killed my family. Kill. You talk to people in real estate. Anybody on this call who owns a house knows the single biggest insurance claim is not burglary. It's not fire. It's that pesky water. It's like it damages value of homes. And if you're renting on a floor in a high rise and there's a leak above you, you can't even live there. So water is like a killer of it's a killer of real estate value. And if you own a property in a floodplain, the house isn't worth anything. So like it's a killer of life and livelihoods. Too much sea level rise, too much water.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But I get people are always hooked on like we're running out of it, because like all of human beings were like running out of it. We need to do something about that. And certainly in Arizona and in some places in Canada and South Africa, yes, conservation technologies are important. But if you look at the numbers, actually, the too much water problem will destroy more lives and livelihoods than. And if people don't have water, like in the middle of the Sahara, like they're going to go to some place where there's water and they'll die from like the contaminated water. No, people don't die from like thirst. Like, maybe a couple people a year. I'm like, I'm so thirsty. Like they're going to go get water out of the river and die from that. And so like the scarcity problem, you know who's interested in the scarcity problem? Corporates.
Water
Because
risk.
no, but water. No, sorry, I respectfully disagree. Greenhouse gas emissions can be measured so easy. We used to emit 60 million gigatons or tons. Now we do 20 million. You're welcome. And the PR department, the board, everyone loves that reduction. We used to use 50 million gallons of water. Now we use 20. You're welcome. Metricable, measurable, solid win for the CEO and the board. We use less water. What do you want from us? Of course, they're going to hang into that one because it's metricable. The PR department loves it. Give us a number. Our plant in Mexico used to use this. Now we use that. Great. Win for everybody. Of course, the corporates are going to hang on to that problem. Quality, tricky. Because that village downstream, they died from the kids died from benzene or Aaron Brockovich chemicals, hexavalent chromium. Well, that's not really our plant. That could be the other plant. I don't know. It's hard to prove these things. And then floods wipe out all kinds of corporates well, there's nothing we can do about that, really. So they focus on quantity, which is great. I mean, kudos to the corporates for using less water. But yeah, I don't know if that moves the needle on humanity's efforts to solve water. I know that sounds cynical. And I
No,
know
no, it doesn't sound cynical.
Xylem's big thing is solve water, and they have great technologies and they're great people. But the too much water problem is what keeps me up at night. That will just bring us to our knees.
I mean,
But
you
it's
mentioned
counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive to people because it's just sort of we're running out of water problem. Is it easier to understand story? So
you mentioned at the
that's my 2 cents
start
on that.
here. I mean, you've obviously, I mean, you're investing in this sort of technology and solutions associated with these challenges. Are you, where do you go for guidance? Do you have where are you getting I mean, do you attend certain events? Is there a certain organization that you look to for, reinforcing or investigating your interests related to water? I mean, are you looking at
our thesis in a nutshell for this is water is risk. If you picked up on it, we have a slightly contrarian approach to things. I mean, we started a few years ago. My business partners and I are not from the investment world. We're not VC guys. We're water guys. And we looked around at the theses available for money that wants to participate in this solving this problem. And we're impact. So we measure everything on a social environmental impact. Water is life, factual, but it's a terrible thesis. I'll say that again. Water's life, it's factual. Water's everything, also factual.
Yep.
Water's the future, also factual. It's also the past. Look at the Romans. I mean, it was all about water, building the aqueducts and stuff. It's always been all about water. Our plants are always next to rivers. Cities are always next to rivers. Water's always been the most important thing. But saying water is life is like saying honesty is important. Everyone's, yeah, honesty is important. Yeah, well, people should be more honest. Yeah. Water's life. Yeah, we should value it more. Water is actually a risk. It's a health risk. It's a business risk. It's a compliance risk if you're out of compliance with the water regulations, which is like a business risk. First and foremost, it's a health risk for humanity. So we look at everything through the lens of risk. Just how does this technology help their customer? Who do we learn from? Founders. Founders of startups, ear to the ground, sense for the market, a sense for the problems that are out there and the incumbents are not solving them in an interesting way. We're on the phone with founders every day, whether we invest or not, it's another story, but we're constantly picking the brains of individuals who wake up in the morning and they're like, I have a fix for this. It's like, oh yeah, what's the fix? Well, here's the technology, here's the customer, here's the problem. Here's what the incumbents are not doing. Here's the competitive landscape. We just learn from the founders. Corporates have products that work and they're big and they're reliable and everyone just buys from, no one ever got fired for buying IBM kind of thing. I don't sense that they have the market pulse as much as the startup founders. It's my experience.
And do you ever, how often do you engage with people like growers when you're talking about agriculture, or municipalities when you're talking about treatment technologies?
Yeah, so the customer discovery is something that the founder themselves has to know better than us. We invest in, and if you're taking notes out there in the audience and you're a startup or something, we invest in companies run by founders who have a PhD in the customer. I don't care if you have a PhD in chemistry or material science. Great. You gotta be a smart person. We like people who are smart on what the customer needs. Flip it over, you get a better result for the customer. Take this out of it. It's unnecessary. You reconfigure this and you get a better result for the customer, how they buy it. This is how the customer's going to pay for this. This is how we're going to partner with this other company. We like to get a better result for the customer. Our product and their product, it's really good fit for the customer, like a valve and a pipe for irrigation or something like that, and sensors. We like founders who have a PhD in the customer. And so we don't really need to know the utility or the grower. I mean, it helps, I suppose. But if the founder cannot convince us that they have spent hours in the ICU, what do they say about doctors? The best doctors understand pain. They spent hours in the ICU talking to patients, understanding the pain. Bad doctors spend time in like ivory towers and like research, and they've never even met a patient. Not a bad doctor, but like less helpful doctor. And so we like founders who've done time in the trenches, pick your metaphor, done time in the ICU, and they've got a good bedside manner. And if we have an hour to talk, how about if we talk about 45 minutes, let's talk about the customer you're going after here. My pleasure. They can talk about all the experiences, the different iterations of the problem, and then 15 minutes talking about the product, the drug that they think will solve the cancer in the patient. Most founders, unfortunately, flip it around. They get on the phone with us and they're like, I got this drug for cancer. It's amazing. It's solve cancer for everybody. Oh, everything. It's like, who's the customer? Well, it's like everybody's going to have it. Like, flip it. Demonstrate to us. I got a deck just last week from a company that it's slide introduced the company and the product. The rest of the deck was customer discovery. Rest of the deck. It was 10 miles deep in the different kinds of customers, different kinds of problems, incumbent solutions, where incumbents are failing them, economics, and like some like photos of like personas. Like these are the 15 different types of person that buys our thing. And they're slightly different problems, but they're all kind of the same genre of problem. And after that, I was like, wow, this guy knows the market so well. The product will evolve, the product will change, the product will evolve, but this person's understanding of the market is rock solid. Where's my checkbook?
Hmm. Do you
So
invest in
that's how we learned about the market is through founders.
do you
And it's
invest in
actually, and I
companies that
no,
have
and no, I don't want to throw any shade to the policy folks and to the academic. The reason I'm optimistic about water, solving our water issues, is because the entrepreneurs that I see on a day-to-day basis. Policy, like, come on, it's just so much talk. And then the NGOs, yeah, we need to like unify around water. We need to collaborate. Like it's all true, but like years of talk and policy. Look at lead in the U.S. We've known lead has been it's created neurological problems for humans for like 50 years. Lead, and just now the U.S. is getting tough on lead, even though we've known it for 50 years. And then PFAS comes along and it's like, oh, PFAS is bad. Of course, I don't want PFAS in me, but like I I feel pretty healthy right now. Went to the gym, worked out. Like yeah, I'm not dying from PFAS disease. So like I don't think the regulatory shoe is going to drop on PFAS anytime soon because it's not proven to kill you. Lead is, and it took 50 years to get smart on it. So policy, not holding my breath. The bright spot in water is entrepreneurs. And we should rally around them and celebrate them and put them on stage and give them a prize for just tackling this hugely complicated issue and enabling customers to be able to take their water problems in their own hands by leveraging technology to see and understand what their water risks are and then do something about it.
do you think Canada does that well, celebrating our entrepreneurial efforts and our, in this
Yeah,
particular space?
Canada does almost to a fault because, yeah, better than any other country I've ever seen. The Dutch are
Yeah.
really strong. The Dutch are strong. Israelis are strong. Singaporeans are strong. The governments in building the ecosystem. The problem from an investor perspective is that the government of all these countries, including Canada, they give free money to good, smart people with good ideas, and they live on that to get going. And you need money to do things, but it sometimes perpetuates a company that probably won't make it anyway, and even more money, more good money after bad, and they're just burning their money. And then the company's still around. And it's like, oh my God, let them die. But government, oh, just give them more another grant. I mean, the U.S. has SBIR grants, and they, the government does. But a lot of successful companies have started with government money, seed money.
Mm.
So what we don't like as investors, when we see a company that's been living off government cheese for a few years, that's when we're like, hold on, you need to be able to survive as a company without handouts from the government. And so we look at the burn, and like the management team is all paying themselves, like they're like remodeling their kitchen off their salaries. I'm like, man, you're a startup. You should be like shoestringing things. Like, you shouldn't be remodeling your kitchen and taking your family to Europe on holiday. You should be like, you should be like, you got to like struggle a little bit in the beginning. But they're like, well, like somebody of my capabilities, like I deserve $150,000 a year. I'm like, that money should be going into like sales marketing and other stuff, not paying yourself a fat salary. So that's my point about, I mean, government does obviously help, and programs like Foresight obviously catalyze all kinds of good stuff. But there's a line that's fuzzy, and some companies just perpetuated by artificial money.
Yep. And I
And
feel
then
like
they,
you would have lots of guidance for these companies, and it was mentioned at the start by Benita that you have is it Mazarine Labs?
yeah, we have a, so we decided to create something called Mazarine Labs. It's on our website under labs, because we would see
Mhm.
deals and be like, oh, like the founder, like the market they're operating in, but like they just haven't figured out the customer yet, or there's something off. Pass. What a shame. The founder's like, no, 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 we're gonna figure it out. It's like, we can't invest until you fix a couple things.
Hmm.
And they're like, well, that's why we need the money to fix them. Like, no, no, you don't need money to fix these things. You need to like time out and stop what you're doing, and like revisit the pillars of your business, which is the customer, the product market fit. And like, well, we'll do that once we get the money. It's like, we're not going to give you money until you can demonstrate that you can do that. So we said, well, but we like the founder. We like the space. Like, what a shame we're passing on this. I wish they could go somewhere and incubate. We didn't find anything. I mean, there's incubators, accelerators, but the mentors, like, I don't know how much they know about. So we created Mazarine Labs in order to get in on some opportunities that we really liked. And then now we've got a couple things in our incubator that we've created on our own from scratch. I mean, hypothesis investors were like, what if you did this and this? And then sometimes we get lone wolf founders who are just on their own. And they're like, I don't have a team. I just have this idea. I'm still working nights and weekends, working on some other stuff. Like, I have this great idea, but like, I just don't have a team. It's like, okay, we'll be your team. And then some companies have gone out to sea and haven't found the proverbial wind. And the founder's like, look, we burned through a bunch of money. Like, we're not, something's wrong. We need to go back to harbor and reboot this ship. Good. And so our incubator, Mazarine Labs, is less about, you need money. Sooner or later, you do need fuel in the tank, of course. You need intellectual capital, not financial capital. You need ideas and strategy. You need human capital, not financial capital. You need players in the field who know what they're doing, especially in sales and marketing. And most importantly, you need social capital, not social media, social capital. You need the endorsement of someone who's a name in the vertical that you're operating in water, whether it's municipal, industrial, residential, commercial, whatever. Let's look at our Rolodex. Oh, you're in hot water heaters. Great. Hot water heaters, part of the water industry. I mean, however you define water industry. Let's get the former senior vice president of A.O. Smith, who's now retired. Let's get him or her on the board of your little company. That person's name on the board is worth way more than that person's money. Endorsement, imprimatur, stamp of approval from an industry name. Let's go out and get them. So Mazarine knows a bunch of people. We can go out and get this raise this social capital. and get a board full of heavy hitters. This company will make it. If you've got that, and investors are like, whoa, 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 you've got her on your board? Where's my checkbook? First of all, does she know she's on your board? Because sometimes young companies, they throw on like some people they kind of know, and they kind of like put people's photos on the deck, and I'm like, I don't know if that person really knows they're on your board or like advisory board. Like, no, I met him at the board. So a credible board of people who will come in and say, I want to tie my name to this little company. And those people better be domain experts. It can't just be somebody who's successful in some other domain. Well, this is my Uncle Eddie. He sold his company for millions. It's like, does he know the business? No, there is something to be said for people who are um, experienced founders and have exited the companies. They can bring in general business acumen, which is always helpful. But for small companies like customer, PhD in the customer, load your board up with people who know the paths to customer and know the customer. And I'll show you a company that can raise money like that.
Mhm. And would you balance the social capital investment with technology verification, technology validation work as well for confidence
But
building?
that's
How important is that to you?
the social capital is the due diligence.
Because it
Because
leads
if
to that opportunity.
we call up former senior vice president of whatever who's retired now and be like, hey, come look at this thing we're looking at. And they're like, wow, this is something we were working on for, I've been looking at these things for 10, 20 years. They finally figured it out. Amazing. Validation. So in terms of technology or techno-economic research, um, the problem is not the technology sometimes, it's like the economics of selling this thing. It's like no one can afford that. And so of course it works, but no one has $80,000 for one of these things. But wait, this little company figured out how to sell it for $10,000? So the technology's been there for 20 years, but they've pulled a couple things out of it and reimagined it. And now it's like it finally is viable because they figured out the economics of it. And so the vetting of that techno-economic vetting comes from industry people who've been around a long time to see all the things. So we just call it the four kinds of capital. Financial capital is actually the easiest. I know that sounds condescending and maybe like funny for people who struggle to raise money, but like there's tons of money out there. If you can't raise money, there's something wrong with the way you're pitching it. And so you need that intellectual capital. What's the strategy? What's the exit? Intellectual ideas, human capital, team of resumes. It's like, wow, it's a first class team you got there. And then a couple of board members who have been around the block a couple times. If you can raise those three types of capital, intellectual, human, social, financial capital is right there. Financial capital is looking for those. But people struggle to raise those types of capital because because it's a great product, you can sell the product, like, I don't know, their ego or something. And by the way, side note, we haven't exited anything yet. Take all of them saying with a grain of salt because we're investors who have no successful, like no exits. So I can say all this and it sounds like I know a thing or two about a thing or two, but like we've invested in 15 companies. They're all doing well, but the whole business we're in is exiting and we haven't exited anything yet. It's been 5 years.
Yep.
So so all of what I'm sharing, park it in the category of like rookie, amateur.
I doubt that very much. I think people really appreciate this perspective. I think you're really sharing some good
The other
insight,
thing I
man.
wanted the other thing I wanted to share was with the audience and is for founders or anybody who's advising founders. We call it time traveler capabilities. So we see all these companies every day, a deck comes in. I want to see a founder who's gone to 2027 and they've looked around, they're back in 2024. And they're like, let me tell you how the world works in our industry, in our domain, and whatever we're doing within water. Let me tell you how customers buy things in 2027. Let me tell you technologies are out there in 2027. Let me tell you how the world looks in 2027, macro and micro. Now it's 2024. And they have to convince investors that the quality, that their insight, the rock in the slingshot, that one insight is plausible possible are totally preposterous. There's no way we're going to fly in cars in 2020. So in water, people are like, oh, everyone's going to remove contaminations of water with magnets. Use magnets to get stuff out of water. It's like, that's preposterous. Pass. That's not how the world is in the future. We just don't believe it. Maybe, but like, and so we like founders that are able to articulate a vision that is so compelling. Where's my checkbook? And it's all about that, like time traveler. I've been in the future and I see how customers buy stuff. So you might say, so we're not even operating in today's market. We're operating in, because you're a startup, you're not really in today's market. It's already too late. Customers aren't buying things. You're in like next year, following year's market. And so founders that are able to articulate that future, the knowledge of how things work in the future, it's a proverbial upper hand.
Where do
You
you
can see
find
what
these
other
people?
it's just out there. They're not always the top of the class. They didn't all get MBAs or go to like the top engineering school. They just
Are
have
they
like
reaching out to you each day? Do you have a
yeah.
series of emails
Yeah,
you just fill in your calendar? Is that how it works?
as much as I would like to say that we get all these deals come to us, we have friends on the playground, syndicate of other guys that we hang out with. And about 50% of our deal flow comes through introductions from other friends. As much as I would like to say, like, oh, we know everybody, we got everything comes to, we rely on friends out on the playground. We're like, hey, John, we saw this deal. Have you seen it? It's like, hey, let's do it. Haven't seen that one. Add it to our database. And so having friends on the playground, just like when you're kids, go out and make friends on the playground and good things will happen. If you're just like operating by yourself, the lone wolf, it's gonna be tough to see opportunity.
Is that an aspect of your incubator, helping these lone wolves? I mean, you've mentioned this a couple times. The lone wolf, the person with a great inspiration. Do you help them create joint ventures with complementary,
Yeah.
technology opportunities that maybe could build a more fulsome company? Or
Every company in our incubator is slightly different.
Mm.
The problem is different. The problem technology is different. What they need is a little bit different, as understandably, because it's just different companies, different skill sets, different ideas, different technology readiness level. Like, but mostly it's I would say 99% of conversations come down to customer. The command of the customer is, it sounds cliche, but it's absolutely everything. It's everything. Again, it sounds cliche, but like you need to come in and be like, we own this customer, own it outright. Our product might evolve, the product will change. Yeah, competing products, there's other people selling stuff that's good too, but we know more about the customer than everybody else. So the question is for founder, like, how do you get to know the customer? It's the business of being a startup. That's the whole reason you got into this, is because you saw some hack, like a problem.
Yep.
And it's like, I'm impatient. The corporates are like sitting on their hands, where people are dying. And it's like, oh, like, I have to solve this in my career. We like founders like that.
It's fantastic. I notice a few things flashing up, but Benita, I'm not sure if you can help me, but there are a few questions that have been coming up in comments, but I haven't got them in front of me. Are you able to let me know if there are particular questions, or if
Yes.
anyone? I'm conscious of time, but I'd like to make sure people get a chance to share their thoughts on this.
Absolutely. I can highly recommend that. If anyone in today's call wants to raise their hands up, feel free to do so and ask questions if need be. Maybe I can just take a question asked in the group, in the chat, by Arya Shasavar. Given the upcoming changes in capital gains, are you actually still looking at investing in Canadian companies?
Yeah, definitely. Our thesis, our strategy is not tied to currency or gains on investments. A good trade is a good trade, and we'll, if we have to exit at a slightly less competitive internal rate of return or ROI. At the end of the day, I hate that expression, but I just used it. At the end of the day, we, my business partners and I, want to be known as hey, those guys really backed some great young companies, and those companies have all done really well. That's so much more important than how much how much how much gains we make on it. So not an issue at all for us. Not an issue at all. And currency is not an issue either. Oh, currency fluctuating. Always fluctuate. It's hard to predict these things.
Great.
Great. There was
Mm,
another fairly long write up from Brent, but I could just try and get it a bit more straight to the point. What changes do you see coming over the next 10 years that may bring the challenges of water quality and scarcity to those who have been able to be blissfully ignorant of the issue for decades?
Climate change is disrupting the water cycle. And if you live in water-rich Canada, I mean, those atmospheric rivers double the volume of rain from the sky, or maybe none at all. It's water. It's not like it's like water instability is the problem. I'd say the biggest driver for humanity in the next decade or two is climate change. And fires, of course, are bad. Wind, tornadoes and hurricanes, heat kill people, but water will destroy. And people who live in water-rich regions, so on the quantity side, the flooding will get even worse in some places, or places that never flooded now will be like that tributary now is a full-on river every time it floods, like crazy amount of water in one place in one day. And then water scarce regions, maybe Arizona, all of a sudden is like gets more water than they've ever gotten. Like look at Dubai. Dubai got like crazy amount of water last week. I can't remember what the numbers were, but crazy amount of water. On the quality side is this. Um, I think the quality side is people are already drinking tap water that has stuff in it that over the long term will result in medical issues. They just don't know it. It's a silent killer. Yeah, I mean, if you drink a little bit of arsenic, a little bit of like chromium or cadmium, or like pick your periodic table, whatever, a little bit of traces every day. Go to the gym, you eat healthy, like fine. Over the course of 10, 20 years, all of a sudden Uncle Eddie's got cancer. It's like, well, he was just unlucky. He died of cancer. God needed another angel. Like, you know how these things are. People just get. I think that better, cheaper, faster testing and improved awareness of health, more people will go out and have their water tested than they did in the past. And they're going to find stuff in their water, well water. It's not even utility. It's just a well out in the middle of Alberta. There's like manganese in there. A little bit of manganese is not a problem for you, but like every day for 20 years, something's going to come up. Your body's not designed to have that much manganese. People are like, well, the government should do something. It's your well, man. It's not, you're not buying from utility that's going to fix it. It's like your well, take a new well, put some filtration on it. So traditionally testing used to be really expensive. Handheld ones were like low resolution and expensive. And then labs like takes 3 weeks. And then like the result, you can't even interpret parts per billion. I have no idea what that means. There's a company we invested in California called Simple Lab, which has looked at the industry of sending samples to labs and made it simple lab, made it really easy for all of us little people to use the technologies in labs. I mean, they're smart people in labs, well-intentioned people. They do a great job in what they do. They're an important contributor to our modern economy. Labs, environmental testing labs. It's hard to work with them though. I can't even use a credit card to pay for a test. I can't find the right person. I email them, they don't respond. I go to the website. Like it's Simple Labs made it easier for the proverbial little person to be able to use sophisticated lab tools uh, and get results back that are really high resolution, quick, cheap. That's not going to be free. You're going to drop a couple $100. But like that's just because you're getting the top equipment in the world. But like if your family's health is at risk, like you drop a couple $100 on the health. So I think to the person that answered the question, I think climate is going to destroy lives and livelihoods with just too much water. And on the quality side, I think it's increased awareness in the news and social media of stuff like PFAS and lead and arsenic. People are going to be like, honey, I think we should test our water. and they're going to find stuff in it, and they're gonna be like, wow, we should get a filtration system right now. That's how like the day-to-day people's lives will be affected.
Do you find, I see your hand there, Karen, I'll flip it over to you right away. I just wanted to flip that comment and ask, are some of your investments, of the investments that you've seen in light of your perspective on what will change, what is an investment that you found incredibly motivating in light of those challenges?
What challenge? What challenges?
You've just outlined, that too much water, climate change is going to
Oh,
be quite disastrous. There are a lot of
yeah.
issues. Are there investments you've made that you feel really counter those challenges?
Yeah. Well, Simple Lab in particular is a good trade in the face of a changing climate, more demand for lab testing.
Hmm.
On the flooding side, we haven't invested anything yet, but we're looking at some deals that are more like precipitation forecasting and weather forecasting that will provide higher resolution visibility into rainfall. I mean, your phone has like, oh, it's going to rain tomorrow, but like it's low res.
Hmm.
Um, and so democratizing weather forecasting tools make it easier for everybody to see and understand what's coming. A couple of deals we're looking at right now. A company we invested in our fund one called EQO in Austin, Texas, is using it's a biotech company basically. So anytime there's living things in water, we all remember this from our elementary school biology class, of DNA, fingerprint.
Hmm.
EQO's technology enables owners and operators or stakeholders to understand what's living in their water. And as the climate changes, this is back to quality again, as the climate changes, the top bit of the water, the chemistry will change a little bit as the atmosphere goes up 1C. Like, how can the water not warm up a little bit? The change in chemistry changes the food chain and changes what can and could live there. And bugs love cold? No, bugs love warmth and water. So harmful algal blooms and cyanobacteria and other organisms that were not living there now are living there now. And like EQO is helping their customers see and understand changes in what's living in my lake, my river, my reservoir, my aquifer. It's a tool that's arming humanity with the ability to see and understand these things and mitigate them before they become a big problem.
That sounds fantastic. That sounds fantastic. I made note, and I'm sure everyone here has as well. Karen, I'll just turn it over to you. I'm sorry we still have time left.
I'm really thankful for this session. I'm really grateful for. I was able to relate to everything what has been discussed in this session, and I'm a PhD in chemical engineering. We are into carbon and water analytics and remediation services. We think that we have solved the problem of water treatment with respect to effluent and sewage, because we are from India and we have handled all the actual sewage and effluent that gets generated. We have consulted millions of liters of effluent and sewage generated through various industries like pharma, like textile, like all the bio ethanol industries. They have nasty water, like you said. And currently, we have a standalone plant which we are thinking of marketing over here. And we want partners more than investors, because we are well funded. And in things like that, we have solved the problem by using membrane technology, advanced membrane technology, and oxidation technology. So, like you said, we have products under our domain which are into cavitation, into advanced membranes, and we have kind of productized it for a small household, so 20,000 liters per day. And we kind of drink the sewage water that we treat. So this is the kind of confidence we have, and we want to spread this in North America. And we feel that because the sustainability dialogue over here is heavy, we will be entertained. So, and since our whole fabrication goes in India, we are able to ship modular things over here in 3 months, and that is how we are kind of looking to complete the projects. And we are also trying to reach industrial and municipal stakeholders, and in that we have some progress with City of Toronto and region of Peel. So I would really like to get in touch with you and discuss further on our offerings.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Philip?
Yes, John, was really glad to hear you because I joined this WaterNEXT group some time ago with Benita, and I was looking at things which, like you say, don't fit the mold. And it relates to a development project I started as a side gig and spent tens of thousands of hours on it in Africa. And that was one of the Great Lakes, which is at risk of erupting spontaneously or triggered by a volcano, which two of them sit on the North Shore. And it can release about 6 gigatons of greenhouse gas to atmosphere in a day and probably kill up to 5 million people. So it kind of drives me as a mission. Now, we've developed the tech to sort the problem out, but it's very difficult to find investment. I see you're an impact type investor to bridge us into that ability to trade on those potentially 6 gigatons of carbon sales, and to at the same time actually generate energy and provide energy for literally 2 countries, making them both net zero. So this is a big thing, but it's not a thing in perhaps any investor's investment thesis. So we need to start a conversation like this and say, this is real, it's researched, it's had probably 50,000 hours of research done in it, not all by me. I've done a small portion of that. But it's a real solution that can be applied to places like this Great Lake in Africa, Lake Kivu, the Black Sea in Eastern Europe, which has got massive amounts of methane and hydrogen sulfide in it. And eventually in the Arctic, where we're looking at trying to trap and remove the greenhouse gases, mainly methane, which is, because of climate risk, at risk of starting to get into the atmosphere, emitting to atmosphere at multi-gigaton scale. I guess it's a
Great.
case of
Thank you.
find the right person to have a conversation with.
Yeah, that's like most of life, I suppose.
So, how do I
Thank you.
follow up
Yeah,
on
it said send me reach out on our website. We have a form. You can reach out and send me some more details.
All right.
Yeah,
But
that'd be great. Sounds
really,
interesting.
you
Sounds
triggered
interesting.
a thing there where it's very difficult to find people that even entertain the thought because it's out there. Seems far away, but for the people that live there, it's an everyday risk.
Yeah. And so we're looking for somebody who has a PhD in those people's problems.
Well, I work with about 6 or 7 or 8 PhDs in that problem, but they're not practical people like me. I had a career in big oil and gas, doing big
Okay.
mega projects.
Well, let's schedule a time to connect separately. But it sounds really interesting, and I'd love to have a follow-up.
Yeah,
So reach
I'd
out on
love
our
to.
website, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you.
I mean, one other thing that I've seen some of these comments in here about we need more money for things like it doesn't really cost that much to this is so contrarian because the big engineering houses are like we need more money and the nonprofit groups of course are like we need more money. We need trillions to solve water problems. We need gazillions. Technology, whether it's hardware or software, makes the cost of things, brings the cost down, makes things more efficient. To build a desalination plant, to build a wastewater treatment plant, does not have to cost a fortune. And entrepreneurs, technology companies doing decentralized stuff, somebody asked about decentralized. Founders are figuring out how to make things cheaper. Engineering companies are on the other end of the spectrum. Oh, this is a big, complicated, expensive project. We need lots of money. The technology kids in the playground are like, BS. This is not as expensive as those guys say it is. And they're getting fat, rich, and happy off, oh, $1 trillion to solve our water problems. You can't say this on stage because if I say we don't need that much money to solve water problems, it sounds like I'm not valuing the importance of solving water problems. But The problem humanity has is that the price tag on water and wastewater infrastructure has become so expensive. Another study, another report, another framework, another guidelines. There's so much fat being spent on studies, advice. I say this not trying to reduce the value that consultants bring, but a lot of the world's water wastewater problems do not require a fortune. And via technologies, the companies we invest in, they're making things better, cheaper, faster. Bring those efficiencies. So, example, most people can't afford KPMG to do their taxes. TurboTax. Most people can't afford Oracle to do their bookkeeping. QuickBooks. As impact investors, we're looking for the QuickBooksization of pumping water, treating water, filtering water, sensing and monitoring water, whether it's ocean, fresh, in the pipes in my house, or what I'm cooking with.
You know what? I feel like that's a very motivating message actually for us to wrap up on, because everybody here wants to be that solution to you and to their clients. They're looking to put together, or they've already put together, this solution, and they're raring to get out there. So it's good to hear that you also find that motivating. I mean, you obviously represent access to some capital, but as you say, the social capital for these time traveling PhDs, honestly, it's a very motivating and refreshing message. I'm sure everyone on here enjoyed the chance to benefit from, I would say, your frank approach to describing the situation and how you tackle it as an investor. I'm going to turn this back over to Benita, but personally, and certainly because I have the chance to thank you on behalf of this group, we really appreciate your time and the ability to kind of be frank with us about these things. I think it will help a lot of people in their approach to growing their companies. So thank you.
Thank you so much, both Evan and to John, for joining us today and having a very frank and open conversation about the water tech landscape. I just want to highlight a couple of upcoming sessions for our Waterside Chats. We'll see you probably after the end of summer with our IP strategy session slated for August 28th, exploring water tech export opportunities in September, and then piloting strategies for Waterside Ventures. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and please feel free to connect with John at Mazarine through Mazarine's website or through LinkedIn. I'm sure he'll be happy to hear from you all. Thank you and have a lovely day.